Cooper got open and caught it. Touchdown, Indiana.
Going up the middle is Omar Cooper, and he'll walk into the end zone.
Complete at the 47. Surratt with no one to beat.
It's Thursday night, which means Crimson Kickoff is coming to you live from the Bo McMillan Suite here at Merchants Bank Field at Memorial Stadium. Hello and welcome. I'm Joe Cronin. Got Graham Nash, Thomas Crow, the usual crew, our whole behind-the-scenes action production crew, making all the magic happen behind the scenes. We're giving you the wall-to-wall Indiana football talk. Those Hoosiers are 8-0, most recently coming off a 56-6 just decimation of the UCLA Bruins, a team that was looking hot coming into that game. All eyes are moving forward. The Hoosiers head out to College Park, Maryland to take on the Terrapins this Saturday, 3:30 kickoff on CBS. But backtracking to the UCLA game. Thomas, this is the second time this season that Indiana has beat a conference opponent by 50 or more. They're the only team in FBS to do so. The last time an FBS team beat two conference opponents by 50 plus, 2018 Clemson, an undefeated national champion. I don't want to speak too soon, but this Indiana team is special. They look much improved from that record-breaking year they had last year.
Yeah, Joe, Graham, happy Halloween. It was scary for UCLA on Saturday. The Hoosiers dominated them in every facet of the game: offense, defense, special teams. And Kurt Signetti adds another coach onto his long list of whom he's given their worst losses to in their tenure with that school. They flew all over the field, lost a couple guys, but other than that, it was a successful day for Indiana.
Yeah, it was. And despite the losses, still really successful, which I think – one of the most important things to harp on and talk about, which I know we will. But before we do, let's get you the highlights from this game. It was a cold and kind of rainy day in Bloomington, but the Hoosiers treating this like any other opponent, said that they were treating UCLA, in fact, like a 3-0 team, not 4-3. So it did not start out hot, though. Indiana picked off Nico Yamaleava and waltzes into the end zone. Pick six, the first for Fisher of the season.
Yeah, and Fisher didn't have to do much on that one. He was just playing his role, and it ended up being in his breadbasket. Look at the protection and the pocket maturity here from Fernando Mendoza. He had 6 seconds in there, and he finds E.J. Williams down inside the 10-yard line. And then the Stephen Daly just go hit somebody package. There is Roman Hemby getting his first score of the afternoon.
And then here's Elijah Surratt getting his only touchdown. That connection, not as strong as previous weeks. Only 2 receptions on the game for Elijah Surratt, but still able to get into the end zone. And then the defense, strong as ever. Isaiah Jones pokes this one out, an INT and a forced fumble. Hosea Wheeler was there to clean it up. It's Indiana football, and they were rolling.
Yep, we're going to talk about Isaiah Jones a lot today, Graham. Another multi-touchdown game, his second of the season, is Roman Hemby. And then look at the speed here from Fernando Mendoza. Not great angles from the UCLA defenders. And nobody other than just some green grass off that right side. You know he has the arm, but Graham, he had the legs here.
Yeah, season high 45 rushing yards for Mendoza in this game. And here's the arm like you were talking about. Mendoza flushed out of the pocket, throws on the run, says E.J. Williams Jr. is down there somewhere. And sure enough, right in the bread basket, season-long 62 yards on that pass for Fernando Mendoza. And E.J. Williams Jr. were by far his best game of the season.
Yep, starters are now out, so we got Hollywood Burt rolling right, 3rd and 5, rolling, rumbling, jumping, almost gets into the end zone there. Indiana takes this one home. You're right, Fernando. That is a first down, my friend. 56-6, another win for Kurt Signetti.
Another win indeed. You can see the rushing yards right there, 262 for the Hoosiers. The first time since the Illinois game they've surpassed 250. That rushing attack, look back. Kaylon Black, Roman Hemby accounted for over 150 yards. Like you mentioned, Graham, Fernando Mendoza's season high of 45. This team is legit. I do like that Hollywood Burt, very interesting nickname right there. But this was just a domination from the Hoosiers from the get-go. I mean, Thomas, the first 2 plays really set the tone. A Tyreek Tucker sack and Aiden Fisher pick 6. It's hard to for UCLA in that rowdy away environment to come back from that.
Yeah, that's how Indiana makes its money, right? Getting in the backfield, making quarterbacks' jobs hard. Nico, I was uncomfortable all day. Indiana had 7 tackles for loss, 3 sacks. And then, you mentioned it. Aiden Fisher got the pick, ended up leaving after the next drive. But, man, credit to Isaiah Jones. He was impactful. He got the communication device in his helmet. He was the point guard, substitute point guard for the defense, and he filled in well.
Absolutely. It was a 1-2. I mean, Isaiah Jones playing that next man up, had to fill in for the green dot. And Graham losing Fisher to what was that knee injury at the time. And Kurt Cignetti talked about on Monday how he is probable to play against Maryland. And that's a huge break for the Hoosiers. Number 4 flies around the field and seems like he's making plays every single play.
Yeah, he's the vocal leader. He's the captain on this defense. You need to have him in, if anything, just to get the play around smoothly. That's how they practice the majority of the season. Of course, Isaiah Jones knows what to do if, in their situation, God forbid this happens, but it did, and Jones stepped in. Still, you do not want Aiden Fisher not on the field. He flies around. He is the leader of this team. And with Kellen Wyatt already out in this game and likely the rest of the season, it was already a question of, okay, how would Indiana's defense be able to respond without one of its best pass rushers? You take out Indiana's best linebacker, questions rise, and Indiana answered all of them.
Not just best linebacker. I mean, this is an all-American caliber guy, a first-team All-Big Ten guy. It seems like the defensive line has shifted very well. Other injury news from Monday, Kurt Cignetti announced that Kickoff specialist Brendan Franke is going to be questionable on Saturday in the Maryland game. He suffered an injury on the opening kickoff, and Quinn Warren was kind of filling in his spot. And one more thing Cignetti said on Monday, he was asked about his favorite Halloween costume growing up. His 2 favorites were Batman and Superman, but he also had a heavy emphasis that Reese's and Twix were his favorite candy. So, gentlemen, I have to ask you, because it's the eve of Halloween, what's your favorite candy? Halloween candy at that. Thomas, you got it?
If a Snickers gets near me, it's not going to be there long.
Snickers.
Fair.
Okay. Snickers are great. You kind of touch all the bases with it. You get the crush, you get the caramel, and it's got that nice little chocolatey bit. I need some Snickers in my life right now.
I'm also a big Snickers fan. I would say I've always been a big Kit Kat guy, though.
Oh, yes. That's a perfect. I mean, give me a break right there. That is beautiful. We got to move on, though. We're going to talk about the UCLA game, go full in-depth. Before that, I had the chance to catch up with Indiana defensive back in his first year with the Hoosiers, Devin Boykin. Don't go anywhere.
Our player spotlight of the week is Indiana defensive back Devin Boykin. Devin, defense has been flying around this season. How have you seen the team, week 1 to now just grow and develop?
The big thing is for us is just obviously, like you said, just to keep growing every week, being able to come into practice and execute. And I think that's where it starts is practice. So just making sure that we execute all throughout the week, and game day is easy for us.
Personally, where have you seen your development grow the most? You're a veteran guy, but you try and get better every day, right?
Yeah. For me, it's just learning, taking as much as I can from our safeties coach, Coach Adams. We do a lot of different things than my previous school. So just being a sponge, absorb all the information, and just take it from there.
On Saturday, you got your first interception since 2023. How'd that feel, especially after everything you've gone through?
Yeah, it feels great, man. Just knowing all the work that I put in, just coming back from injury. Finally got one, but, it's bigger things, bigger goals for us out there.
Your time at NC State dealing with that injury, what was that like, having to watch from the sidelines and then putting your name into the portal?
It was kind of rough for me, just knowing I wanted to be out there and being out in the field with my brothers. It's something you always want to do, even when you're hurt. But just the decision, it came from numerous of things. Yeah. But, I'm here now, so it's great.
There's a strong cultural identity with this team ever since Cignetti's got here. What was your first impression of him, Coach Adams, kind of your whole first IU impression?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so when I first got here, I didn't know anything about Indiana. So when I first met Sig, real serious, real demanding, and what I like from him is just the communication. He's very direct in what he wants and what he wants to see from me. So that's why I liked Indiana, just how straightforward he was, and it just felt like the perfect fit for me.
What's been your favorite part of the season so far?
Favorite part of the season? Like game-wise or like?
Just moment maybe, just developing, working with the guys, getting to know the guys. Even.
Yeah, I mean, my first season here, so like I said, I'm just kind of absorbing everything and just being a sponge. I would say my favorite part of the season, I don't know, it's a hard question. That's a tough one. Obviously, I just feel like game days, man. I love the atmosphere here in Bloomington. I enjoy the fans. I enjoy my teammates and everything that goes on with it. So.
Yeah, only one home game left. What's it like being in front of this crowd? I mean, it's been sellouts after sellouts.
Yeah. This crowd is amazing, man. It get loud. Obviously, when we're out there flying around, you obviously hear the crowd a lot more, man. I love it, man. I love it.
Well, Devin, thank you so much. Best of luck this weekend.
Thank you so much.
Boykin's been playing the rover spot this season for Indiana, kind of the nickelback comparison. This is the guy that was at NC State for 4 seasons, was injured the entirety of 2024, and there was a thought that he was committed to play one more year at NC State. Curt Cignetti made the call. Next thing you know, they got another, buff up to that defensive back room. But moving backwards, 56-6 win over UCLA. I mean, it's hard to just put into words that this team continues to put up these margins of victory, the amount of points on their conference opponents. Fernando Mendoza did it again. Had another kind of Heisman-esque game, 4 total touchdowns. Not a ton of passing yards, but it's because the rushing attack was really carrying that weight.
Yeah, the rushing attack was phenomenal. And it wasn't the 4 incompletion, 4 touchdown game that Fernando Mendoza showed off against Michigan State. But this was much more of a game where he just made things happen, where it looked like he was dead to rights a couple of times, pocket collapsing, and he made plays, whether that be with his legs or with his arms. What impresses me the most is when you look at the numbers, which at this point, you guys know I'm a big numbers guy. I was bringing them to the show. Every time Fernando Mendoza drops back to pass, Indiana gains 8.5 yards. It is unbelievable. Playmaker. I mean, it truly doesn't matter if he does it with his legs, if he does it with his arms. Every time he drops back, 8.5 yards.
And I think something that we had seen kind of in the Iowa game a little in Oregon was like, okay, he wants to use his legs to move down the field. This is the first time it's like, oh, he's like outrunning defenders, and he's kind of extending plays as well. And Thomas, that was something. He was so poised in the pocket. He didn't try and force anything really. Yeah, he kind of had a chuck up moment on that E.J. Williams touchdown, but E.J. Williams was wide open.
Yeah. I mean, that was something Curt Cignetti talked about at the beginning of the season, even the first couple games, is he wants Fernando to mature in the pocket. I think this was the best example so far all season. He looked fantastic in the pocket. There were multiple times where earlier in the year, I think he would have escaped or left maybe when he didn't need to. But that E.J. Williams play, man, when he stayed in there 6 seconds, you got to credit the offensive line, the maturity, the just using his legs when it's necessary, but not when he's scared to be in the pocket. No happy feet. It was an impressive game, even though the numbers didn't necessarily show it.
I mean, he still accounted for over 200 yards between his passing and his rushing, and then, 4 total touchdowns. Right now, he's tied for first in the nation for touchdowns accounted for. He's 27 on the year, and he's tied for Brendan Sorsby of Cincinnati, former Hoosier, who's got those Bearcats rolling in the Big 12. But for Fernando Mendoza, he threw an interception on the first drive of the game, Graham. He now has 3 on the season. Something I've noticed is every time Mendoza has thrown a pick, he's turned around and put up a phenomenal performance. Threw a pick against Iowa. It looked like they were dead to rights, and Iowa had that game in the bag. He goes down the field, makes the play to Elijah Surratt for the win. Throws a pick six out in Austin, marches down the field, go-ahead touchdown to Elijah Surratt. Throws the early interception against UCLA, then has 4 touchdowns on their head. I mean, how does he able to just shake off everything after a mistake like that?
I think it's the belief that his team gives him every time that he has had a turnover. And we talked to him about it in media after the game and post-game media. He always says, oh, obviously you don't want it to happen. But afterwards, I just walk up to my teammates and there's no shadow of a doubt in their minds that we will charge down the field and score. So I think it's the belief that his teammates give him. I think it's also the fact that the only time opponents have scored when Fernando Mendoza gives the ball away was the pick 6. Yeah. The opposing offense then doesn't charge down the field and have a miracle game-winning drive because the defense is so good that they can shut it down as quickly as Fernando Mendoza can light it up. But we joked when we left Odson, a big group of us that went, we joked that teams are going to start, seeing the pick right in their hands and just bat it down because they don't want him to, get that fire and charge right down the field.
Just force the 3 and out.
Just force the 3 and out. Yeah, it's unbelievable how he just responds to that adversity.
Now, on the topic of Mendoza, we're going to shift a little bit to his brother Alberto. He got some playing time again in a Big Ten game. That's the second time this season. Both of them had a touchdown. Alberto had a rushing touchdown, the last touchdown of the game. Thomas, I know he is the backup quarterback, but it's the kind of special moment that there are two brothers performing at one of the best teams in the country and scoring touchdowns at that.
Yeah, you know what was really cool is UCLA also had two brothers, Nico and his younger brother Madden. We'll have to get our stats guys on how many times two quarterbacks who are brothers have played off against each other in a game. I don't even know if I'm saying that right. You guys know what I'm getting at, though. It was good to see Alberto getting some playing time. Maybe somewhat of a tryout in a way. There's a good chance Fernando will be in the NFL come next season. Coach Shanahan and Coach Signetti are probably looking at Alberto as a guy that they need to see some reps from.
I mean, as a junior and what he's doing right now, Fernando's stock is through the roof for different scouts around the league. There were New York Jets scouts that were at this past game here at Merchants Bank Field at Memorial Stadium. I want to move on, though, to the guys surrounding Fernando Mendoza, because this is such a decorated receiving room, Graham. We talked about Elijah Surratt so much this season. We talked how Omar Cooper is such a good complement to that. In this game, it wasn't Cooper, it wasn't Surratt, it was E.J. Williams. He has so many games under his belt, but this was the best of his career.
Yeah, over 100 receiving yards for E.J. Williams Jr. Only had 5 catches. That's 21.8 yards per catch. That is unbelievable. And good on the offense for adjusting, because in Fernando Mendoza as well, he was talking about in the post game that, Omar Cooper Jr. was doubled. Elijah Surratt was doubled. UCLA took away both of those options, and he was like, all right, well, time to go to E.J. Williams Jr. And he said that E.J. really stepped up to the task. Obviously, you look at his stats and what he did. It goes back to, on any given day, any of these guys' numbers could be called. Last show, I said, there's maybe no true one. I'm going to take that back. Elijah Surratt is the true one, but on any given day, one of the guys' numbers could be called to step up. And I think that we really saw that with E.J. Williams Jr.
Something that Signetti talked on Saturday after the game was how the receivers weren't really creating a lot of separation. E.J. Williams was, and some of them were on when Mendoza kind of rolling out and finding ways open. But E.J. Williams, whether or not he was double teamed compared to Surratt, he had himself a game and really put other defenses for the rest of the season on notice, Thomas.
Yeah, in his 53 games in college, this is his first ever 100-yard game, as well as his first ever multi-touchdown game. And guys, it's just the versatility of this offense. Charlie Becker had catches. Riley Nowakowski had catches. Eventually, you're not going to be able to stop every single guy, right? Roman Hemby got in the end zone.
Pick and choose.
And Fernando used his legs. So if you're going to double Surratt and Cooper, watch out. E.J. Williams will light you up. The running backs will light you up. And if you're not going to double them, you know what the result's going to be.
Now, on the topic of a game like this is the third receiver on this team that has had a game of 100-plus yards and multiple touchdowns. Elijah Surratt has done it. Omar Cooper Jr. done it. And E.J. Williams just did it. These guys have played at such a high level all season long. They're performing when it matters the most. And, Graham, it's hard to argue about a deeper and better receiver room, especially with that top 3 right there.
Yeah, it's so good. We talked before that Oregon game, talked about how Dante Moore has a different receiver that he can go to in every big situation, that he liked to use in every situation. At the time, it was pretty much only Surratt for Fernando Mendoza. But as the season has drawn on, that has switched. That has totally changed. We've seen him go to Omar Cooper Jr. more in those middle 8 minutes where you really need to get a reception and get a couple hard-earned yards. You see E.J. Williams Jr. on a lot of those longer tries, like the 62-yarder. That's the season long for Mendoza and E.J. Williams Jr. So in different situations now, we're seeing him share the wealth, which I think is a interesting thing to keep looking at.
You can see right there on the clip, EJ just completely loses the defensive back. Here's the graphic right there of the receivers in Big Ten games this season. It's hard to tell which one has had the better game. I would argue Elijah Surratt, considering the moment, considering where that game was played out in Autzen Stadium. But the fact that all 3 of these receivers have done this against Big Ten opponents, it's such a versatile group, and they all play to their strengths in different ways.
Yeah, and I think the offense plays to their strength as well, guys. I was really impressed with Mike Shanahan, the way he used tempo and no huddle on the late downs in this game on Saturday. 3rd and 3. 3rd and 5, 4th and 1, whatever it was, he was getting the call into Fernando quick. He was telling his teammates quick, and then it was just kind of an off schedule. Hey, let's go quick, get this over with, and it worked significantly. They were 12 of 16 on 3rd down. And I think a lot of that had to do with the tempo. One thing that surprised me, though, I don't know if you guys noticed how much the UCLA linebackers were selling out on the run. Indiana still ran well, but there were a couple times they got hit at the line. That's because they were selling their soul. The linebackers were on the run. It surprised me they didn't go to play action more. I would have thought that Shanahan would have tried to get one over the top, but also I noticed it late enough to where Indiana had the game handled.
They are such an RPO heavy system as well. So maybe tweaking things up. I'm not sure how much is in the playbook right there. But last thing on the receivers, want to talk about Elijah Surratt just briefly. 2 receptions, 6 yards, 1 touchdown. You look at that stat line, it's nothing crazy. It's the touchdown that gave him his 10th of the season. He's the first Hoosier since Shane Wynn to eclipse the 10 touchdown marks. He did that back in 2013. And Surratt, he's on pace to move his way up the record book for Indiana. The receiving touchdowns record in a single season for IU was set by James Hardy back in 2007. He had 16. Surratt is at 10. This is an Indiana team that still has 4 regular season games left to play. If they continue this winning, a Big Ten championship left to play. If they keep winning, college football playoff games. A touchdown every game, and he's tying that record. And he's also working his way up in career receiving touchdowns. Already at 18, only needs 3 more to get sole possession of 3rd. He'll need upwards of 15 more to get into that 2nd range. I'm not sure if that's going to happen in 6 games. But Elijah Surratt finds the end zone, Graham.
Yeah, he really does. He's unbelievable. And I think, given how many games could be left, I think there's a really good chance that Elijah Surratt does move into that upper echelon of wide receivers in Indiana football history. Just the only thing that would give me pause to maybe say, okay, maybe it doesn't happen is because of how we're seeing opposing teams attack him now.
Yeah.
He was doubled pretty much the entire game. The Bruins were locking him down. They're like, someone else can get the ball, but it's not going to be you. We do not want it to get in your hands, and for good reason.
Scored.
And he still scored. But what it did do, Surratt still drew 2 PIs. There were pass interferences flying left, right, and center. So even though he only had the 2 catches, he still got the team 30 yards because of those 2 pass interferences. That's going to be the reason why I think teams back off, because he's good at drawing that contact and kind of roping the defender in and getting that PI.
I know pass interference in college is only a 15-yard penalty. That's something I feel like should go in the stat sheet as a completed pass for the quarterback, go in like for those extra yards. I don't think that rule is going to get changed anytime soon. Let's move to the running backs, though, and the running game as a whole. Over 250 yards, like I mentioned earlier, the first time since the Illinois game. Thomas, you said they were running the ball well. This was a tremendous running day from the Hoosiers. Roman Hemby led the charge, 17 carries, punched on the ball twice as well. But the duo, Kalon Black was averaging 7 yards per carry. He seems like more of the secondary guy, but it's a great 1-2 punch.
Yeah, it really is. And the goal line is where actually within about the 20-yard line, the red zone is where they just get it done, man. The amount of runs I feel like they've had this year where it's been a 15-yard rush touchdown is unreal. They just get it done there. And then let's talk about the Stephen Daly package for a second. It's not – it wasn't extremely effective actually in that game. I think they ran it 3 times and only scored once off of it. But I don't care about efficiency. I love it, man.
When a big guy gets in there.
I love it. I talked to Roman Hemby after the game, and he told me, I asked him specifically why Stephen Daly was the guy. And he said that, look at him. He's the strongest guy in the team. And he just goes in there like a chicken with his head cut off. Go hit somebody. Nowakowski sets the edge. I'll talk about it in the film room. It's easy when you got a defensive lineman who's dominating on the defensive side of the ball, also hitting linebackers on offense.
You're getting him downhill 5 yards. That's a big man moving. That's a guy on the defensive line who's been wreaking havoc in some backfields this season. But for Roman Hemby, you got to want to touch on him a little bit because this upcoming game, he's playing his former team, a team that he spent 4 seasons on, accumulated over 2,000 yards with the Terrapins, 22 total touchdowns on the ground, 5 receiving touchdowns. His sophomore season in 2022 was by far his best, 11 yards shy of 1,000, 10 touchdowns on the year. He's very familiar with Mike Locksley and those Maryland Terrapins. A bit of a revenge game, Graham?
I think it could be. You're always going to be coming in hot when you're playing your former team. And, it's going to be fun, I think, for him to get to have this opportunity, especially after coming with the Terrapins to Bloomington last season and losing. I think there's probably, a bit of, okay, now can I serve the favor back? Can I be on the other side of that? But what's also interesting is, he's about 80, 90 yards shy of his total rushing yards last season with the Terrapins. He's been a bulk back. This guy gets so many carries in a game, and he works so well in space. Like it's so hard to bring him down when he's got the ability to be creative. And I think the Terrapins are going to have their hands full with Roman Hemby.
I think his versatility as a pass catcher too is kind of separated a little bit, allowing him to be the one in the room. But this is a tandem. They rank 10th and 11th in the Big Ten in rushing yards, and that's pretty. They don't have a guy that's going to go and get 200 yards in a game, but it's just enough that makes this rushing game so potent. Let's move to the defense. They held the Bruins to 6 points. That is the second lowest total of the season. It's the lowest total in Big Ten play. Not a touchdown was scored by UCLA. Again, they found home in the backfield. 7 tackles for loss, 3 sacks by those Hoosiers. Tyreek Tucker with 1.5 sacks, 2 tackles for loss. They have 29 total sacks on the season, which is second in FBS. Thomas, Bryant Haynes is a madman. He just attacks.
Yeah, I think Bryant Haynes has to be either the favorite or a heavy consider for the Broyles Award. He just is unreal. The simulated pressures, the getting after the quarterback, the getting after the runners. And what was cool to me was Indiana in this game. Obviously, they were favored, expected to win, but the noise of UCLA, they've won 3 in a row, new head coach, new OC, kind of a new program. They were coming on the road, and people thought, hey,
they were fun.
They were fun. Let's see if something can happen here. Kind of interesting that it was a sack and a pick 6 to start the game.
That's how you punch someone in the mouth. But Graham, just overall, this is a rush defense that outside of the Old Dominion game, in the last 7 consecutive games of holding their opponent to under 100 rushing yards, and then they held Nico I to 113 passing yards on the day, a season low for the Hoosier defense. They just dominated on all facets, and it was led by the guy who filled in for the Aiden Fisher injury, Isaiah Bones Jones.
Isaiah Jones continues to impress. He went into the game, I think, the leading tackler in the Big Ten. Just an absurd stat for a guy that didn't really play much time last season. And for me, it all started with Indiana's ability to contain Nico. We talked last week in the preview that Nico is a phenomenal running quarterback. He's got such a good ability to use his legs, be creative, and we didn't see much of any creativity from Nico. He was shut down. He was kept in the pocket. And then when he did flush out, Isaiah Jones was there to tackle him. Devin Boykin was there often to tackle him. There were so many pieces, and I think it comes back to Bryant Haynes and what a good job he has done to get creative with his schemes, with Kellen Wyatt out, with, in the game, Aiden Fisher out. He had to use different pieces in different ways. Devin Boykin was so much fun to watch in that game, and so was Isaiah Jones. He was just flying every which way.
Devin Boykin was making plays on special teams, got his first interception since 2023. Mentioned how he was hurt for 2024. Probably a special moment for Boykin right there. Thomas, this is one of the deepest front sevens in all of football. It's not just one guy showing off. I mean, Isaiah Jones flies around. Aiden Fisher, we've mentioned him so many times this year. Mentioned Tyreek Tucker, how he led the team. But there's so many guys, whether they're on the line, the off-ball linebackers, it doesn't matter. Someone's going to make a play, it seems like.
Yeah, I mean, we could just name every single person on the D-line, and they've probably made a play so far this season. It's impressive, guys. I think you can make an argument that Indiana's front seven is the best position group in the country. They fly around the field. One of the funnier plays, I think, from the game on Saturday was UCLA tried to play action pass. Indiana almost tackled them before they got to the fake handoff. That's how quickly they were in there. Let's just say that Coach Neuheisel did not try play action again after that.
I think I've seen that happen only in NCAA football when you run commit and you get in the backfield quick enough. Yeah. But we're going to wrap up our UCLA IU talk. But before that, Thomas, let's hit the film room.
Yeah, absolutely. We talked about EJ Williams a lot in this. Fernando Mendoza being patient. And then we did talk about the Stephen Daly package. So we'll jump to that. All right, guys, another film room. 3 offensive plays here from Indiana's 56-6 victory over UCLA. Let's start it here with Fernando Mendoza. Just masterclass of how to be a pocket passer. Offensive line protects him. They're going to bring, looks like they're going to bring 5 guys. They're only going to bring 3. Fernando's going to stay in the pocket. He's going to have 3 different opportunities to escape. He's going to stay in there. That's the maturity in the pocket that Kurt Signetti's talked about with him. And then it's going to be EJ Williams just being patient, finding a way to get open in between a lot of defenders. Let's go ahead and watch it. Look at this. Only bringing 3. The offensive line does a great job. He looks there, doesn't do it. Looks there, doesn't do it. Decides to pull back, keeps his head up the whole time, then finds EJ in between 4 or 5 UCLA defenders. It's an awesome play. It's what an NFL quarterback does, right? Patience in the pocket, not escaping if you don't need to, and keep your eyes downfield. Let's go in and watch it one more time. I want you guys to key on his ability to just not dip when he doesn't need to. Look at this. Patience. Eyes are going here. They go here. He sees a lane, decides, I'm not going to do that. Sees a lane here, decides, I'm not going to do that. Then pulls out. Eyes are downfield the whole time. Good job by the O-line not getting an illegal man downfield. And then EJ Williams, when there's 6 seconds in the pocket as a receiver, you just get creative, find a way to get open. And EJ Williams did that. Now let's go to just a couple plays later, down at the goal line. 4th down here for the Hoosiers. Chance to go 14-0. This is what I call the Stephen Daly package. Why is it the Stephen Daly package? Well, according to Roman Hemby, he's the strongest guy in the team. Let's just throw him in there at fullback, right? What's going to happen here is the offensive line is going to rugby scrum left. Stays is going to go that way as well. Nowakowski's job is to get the hole started about right here. Let Stephen Daly come in here right off tackle and drill the first guy he sees. Roman Hemby's job is obviously to score the touchdown. Now, where it goes wrong for UCLA is John Vaughns gets a great break on the play and just takes a really bad angle. Could have been a tackle for loss. It isn't. Let's watch it. Scrum, everybody down. Vaughn's untouched off the edge. He was there. He just didn't dive at his legs to go get him. And then Daly kind of put that guy in a backwards somersault. Let's watch it a little bit slower here. So everybody scrums that way. Look at Vaughn. Just doesn't make the play. Daly, yeah, that guy's going for a backwards somersault on that one. 2 UCLA defenders collide. Hemby's already in the end zone. Now, an awesome play design here before the end of the half. This is a route that I don't know if I've ever seen, or a concept I don't know if I've ever seen. What they're going to do is they're going to roll out Fernando. Kalon Black as his blocker protector. The offensive line is going to create a wall here so that the UCLA can't get at Fernando. Now, what's cool about this is Surratt. He's going to come in here what looks like a normal pick play, try and get Omar out that way. But what is cool about it, it's kind of like a pick and flip in basketball. He's going to come up. Now, he doesn't get far enough into it for it to work to make this defender switch. But the idea is that he would come here, get both defenders on Cooper, and then just slip out the backside. That's what they're looking for. Fernando's patient. He starts at this seam. Once he gets to this one is when his eyes find EJ in the back of the end zone. So the wall, look at that. We'll look at it slower, but it's a cool concept. NFL level throw there. Awesome work from Joe Cronin, getting right into it, right when EJ gets into the end zone. Good job, Joe. All right, so let's roll it out here. Look at the wall here. Nobody's getting there. And then right there, he didn't get into the defender's body enough to make him switch, but that's a really cool concept from Mike Shanahan, something they'll probably work on more. And then just an NFL level throw right into the pocket. The defender didn't have a chance at it. And then we cut it off early, but Joe Cronin was there and he was ready. Back to you guys. Man, it's an honor to be standing next to just a consummate professional, a guy who probably ruined all of the shots for anyone on the sideline on that play. Joe, you're an animal.
Hey, the moment was there. I feel bad for the poor guy in the Cuban Center. He just got trampled by EJ Williams, but he took it like a champ. EJ got up. I asked about it. I was like, that was a hard fall. And he's like, I'm okay. You know, it happens from time to time. You know, it was a moment that I was so close. That could have been me. If I was 2 spots over, I would have been trampled by EJ Williams. I wasn't, though. Indiana is playing Maryland on Saturday. It's a 3:30 kickoff on CBS. You know, should be an interesting game. Let's preview the Maryland Terrapins. And first, our Andrew Hilsman has the preview.
The last time Indiana football went east to College Park, things looked a lot different. Maryland won that game handily 44-17, but this time around the Terrapins have a much tougher task in number 2 ranked Indiana. After 3 crushing losses in a row, Maryland has a shot to get their season back on track this Saturday on their homecoming. Maryland's offensive unit is led by true freshman quarterback Malik Washington, who's completing right around 60% of his passes and has totaled just north of 1,700 yards on the year. Notably, Maryland's offensive line has only allowed 2 sacks of Washington on the year, but just as was the case with Oregon a couple of weeks ago, this Indiana defense should be that unit's biggest test so far. In a pass-heavy offense, running back DeJuan Williams has carved out 292 yards and 2 scores, as well as 20 catches out of the backfield. Maryland does a great job of spreading the ball around through the air as well, with Shalik Knotts, Octavian Smith Jr., and Jaleel Farouk leading the way in receiving yards. The defense, though, is where this Maryland team shines. They lead the conference in interceptions with 14 and in defensive touchdowns with 4. Senior defensive back Jalen Husky has 3 picks on the year, and Lakai Rowland, Jamari Glasker, and Dante Joyner all have 2 to their name. Linebacker Daniel Wingate has also been a beast this year, as he sits at 6th in the conference in tackles with a total of 65. The big question mark for Maryland in conference play has been the last 15 minutes of their games. The Terps have blown fourth-quarter leads in each of their last 3 games, and if this one is close down the stretch, Maryland will have to stop that trend to have a chance. Kickoff time is set for 3:30 p.m. on Saturday in College Park, with the game being broadcast on CBS.
Welcome back to Crimson Kickoff. Big thank you to Andrew Hillsman for getting us the early preview on the Maryland Terrapins. The Terrapins are kind of the inverse of UCLA. You know, they started hot. They were 4-0, and they're riding a 3-game losing streak. But all the games have been close. They've lost by a combined margin of 10 points in those losses. Graham, this is a team that had a lot of momentum starting the year. Yes, their non-conference slate wasn't anything crazy, but then they open up Big Ten play, going to Madison, Wisconsin. Yes, Wisconsin is terrible this season, but they beat them very handedly and looked like a competitive team in Big Ten play. But they have just fallen apart in the fourth quarter, these last 3.
Yeah, it's so interesting that it has been the fourth quarter. They've had a chance to win every game that they've lost the last 3 weeks. They didn't play last week, so bar the bye week. They've had a chance to win every single game, and it just hasn't happened, whether that be a defensive breakdown, an offensive one. By looking at the numbers, it looks like the majority of the time it has been an offensive breakdown where the Terrapins have gone 3 and out in a very important situation, and then maybe the defense on a different possession, the next possession, isn't able to hold it down when Maryland has 3 timeouts. I know that happened at least once, but with the offense, it seems like quarterback Mikhail Washington just maybe tries to do a little bit too much in those scenarios. He loves to throw the ball, but he's also a good, capable runner. I feel like, in some of those games, if he just ran it, they might have had a little bit more of a chance. But, you never know. You hate losing that way because you have a chance every single time and it just doesn't go your way.
Yeah, let's jump into the numbers of it, Graham. I know you're the numbers guy. I'll take
a numbers guy.
A numbers guy.
We got 2 numbers guys.
Against Washington at one point, a 96.5% chance to win that game. They lose on a touchdown with 3 minutes and 21 seconds to go. They allowed 21 points in the fourth quarter. 85% chance at one point against Nebraska. They lose on a touchdown with 1:08 to go. They allowed 10 points. That was a game Dylan Raiola threw 3 interceptions. And then lastly, against UCLA, 78.5% chance to win that game at one point. They lose on a last-second field goal. Guys, 44 points allowed in the last 3 quarters compared to 1 touchdown. That's it for them in the last 4 quarters.
It just seems like they have no sight of, bless you, Graham, Gesundheit. They have no sight of themselves when the fourth quarter hits. I mean, they were leading Washington 20-0 late in the third quarter, 20-0. And Washington came back. Yes, Damon Williams Jr. of the Huskies had a terrific game. But by the time that Washington scored their first touchdown, they had back-to-back 3-and-outs, another punt and turnover on downs to finish the game. In the 34-31 loss, Nebraska picked off Dylan Raiola. You said it 3 times. They had an interception return touchdown. That was the last touchdown of the game for Maryland, and they just couldn't figure it out after that. 3-0 in the turnover differential, and it's just they can't figure out how to finish games, and they're beating themselves, and that's something that head coach Mike Locksley was saying is they're in these games, and, they're 5-6 plays away from being an undefeated team, Graham.
Yeah, it's got to feel that way. And I think a very timely bye week for this team after those 3 straight really close losses and before the Indiana game. But the only real way that at least I feel like you can reverse this trend is to just go out and win a game. Yeah. You got to go out and you've got to win. And it's kind of got to be in this fashion. You've got to break through. You've got to get over that hump and be able to beat a team when it's a close game in the fourth quarter. They've got a couple chances more to do it. They've got a young quarterback, but it's going to be tough. That can be one of the hardest trends to break.
True freshman quarterback out of Maryland, a 4-star Malik Washington. He's got a tall task to break through, to get over the hump. They welcome the number 2 team in all of the land, the undefeated 8-0 Indiana Hoosiers, who are rolling right now. That offense looks unstoppable. The defense looks ferocious. And Thomas, Malik Washington is going to need his best performance. He's played well up to this point, but it's a different level when you get that top 5 team coming.
Yeah, well, they protect him. That's the thing. He's only been sacked twice. Part of that's the strength of the offensive line. And then part of that's the escapability and the movement that Washington has. He has great vision. He has a great pocket presence. He's very good. He has a weird knack to understand where defenders are when they're behind him. So he gets out of there well. And then it's just about, can they do that now against the best defensive front that they've played? And Graham, you're right. Good teams figure out ways to win games late. It's tough to do so when you have a freshman quarterback. At home, they're going to have to do it if they want to beat Indiana.
Something that Michael Loxley talked about, the times he's been sacked, only 3 times this season, which is one of the lowest marks in all of FBS football. I think it's tied for second fewest in all of college football. They protected him well, and Loxley was saying how if you have a talented young guy like that at quarterback, the worst possible thing is to have him get hit. He hasn't gotten hit. He's developed well. But one thing, Graham, he leads the entire Big Ten in passing attempts. He's throwing under 60% completion. And I think that's partly due. This run game for the Terrapins is not very strong. They rank last in the Big Ten.
Yeah, it's not very good. He's actually a decent part of the run game is Washington. 4th most rushing attempts, 3rd most rushing yards on the season. So another dual threat guy that Indiana is going to have to deal with as they have in the last couple of games. But it all starts with the run game, right? We've kind of talked about this all season long. Establishing that run game allows you to then go play action. It can help really settle an offense when games are on the line, which, as we've just talked about, Maryland hasn't really won those games. Young quarterback again. You're going to learn. You're going to be able to help with that communication. Don't know if it's a communication thing because clearly the offensive line is strong. They've protected the quarterback well. They just haven't been able to establish that run game consistently. A lot of pressure then falls on your true freshman quarterback.
And Thomas, when you look at that offensive line for Maryland, only allowing the 3 sacks in the season, how does an Indiana defensive line, who is one of the best when it comes to sacking the quarterback, go toe-to-toe in a battle like that?
Just go watch the Oregon tape. I don't know.
That's true.
Whatever you've done for the first 8 games of the season, just do that again. No, guys, this defensive front, we hit on it more than enough in the B block. They're unreal. They get after the quarterback. They are the speed, I think, is the most impressive part. How quickly they're able to get into the backfield. Because that 3rd and 1 play that we had in the highlight, Isaiah Jones's fumble, he came from the other side. It was a run to the right, and he started on the defensive right. He had to run around everyone. It was a 3rd and 1, and he got him in the backfield, guys. That just shows the speed that this Indiana defense plays with. And then, getting Fisher back, most likely getting Fisher back is going to be a big deal.
That will absolutely matter. And Malik Washington has his hands full, like we mentioned earlier. He does have some weapons there on the outside, Shalik Knotts and Octavian Smith Jr. Knotts leads the team with over 400 yards on the season, and also with his 5 touchdown grabs. This is a guy that only had 3 catches in the UCLA game, but he was targeted 14 times. Washington was off the mark, but when he's on, it seems like that connection right there might be able to generate some positivity on the offense for the Terrapins. But how does he fare against a D'Angelo Pons?
That's a really good question. I don't think well. D'Angelo Pons, one of the most targeted corners in the Big Ten, and he's allowed one of the smallest completion percentages in the Big Ten. Obviously, that is going to be an unbelievably difficult matchup, and it's going to be hard for, again, we keep harping on it, a true freshman quarterback to be able to manage that. And Brian Haynes, you talked about this a little bit earlier, Thomas, just a freak of nature in his schemes. He's done an unbelievable job last couple of weeks, especially in this last game with a couple of injuries. He's done a great job of kind of hiding Jamari Sharp in a way as CB2, just mixing those two, putting them in similar spots so that a quarterback gets a tough read on who is exactly where. And that is why D'Angelo Pons has been targeted so much, because quarterbacks will think that they're throwing it in the direction of Jamari Sharp, who has had some blown coverage moments this season. And then all of a sudden it's D'Angelo Pons, and they're like, how did that happen? That's not the guy I was trying to target. I think it's going to be a really, really tough matchup for the quarterback, freshman quarterback.
For the opposite defense, the Maryland defense, that's been their stronger suit. They're 18th in the nation in points allowed per game or scoring defense, just under 18 points per game. They have a couple guys that are on the defensive line who really attack the quarterback. Sidney Stewart and Zahir Mathis have combined for 11 sacks. They rank third in the Big Ten in total sacks with 22. Thomas, you talk both sides of the ball. This is an Indiana team that Mendoza's only been sacked 6 times. How does that Maryland defensive front kind of battle a very strong offensive line on that Hoosier side?
Yes, the O-line being on the same page as Mendoza, there is going to be more pressure than there was in the UCLA game. He's not going to have 6 seconds to sit back there and play with his food. But Pat Coogan, Evans, Carter Smith, those guys have to all be on the same page. It's a road environment. It's loud. And it's a Maryland fan base who are dying for a win, especially an upset win that they can maybe storm the field for. I would think so.
I imagine.
And so they're going to have to be on the same page. Fernando has to understand that there are guys coming off the edge who are serious guys, which maybe he didn't experience last week.
Number 2, Indiana, traveling to Maryland, College Park. It's their homecoming as well. So I imagine students might be a little juiced, been away the bye week, the road game. So could be a rowdy atmosphere out in the Shell is what they call their stadium. Kind of a fun little turtle pun right there. But before we go, we got to talk some national stuff. But first, let's talk Big Ten. Our very own Brooks White. You know what it is. It's the Brooks White Big Ten breakdown. Let's check it out.
Welcome back to Brooks's Big Ten Breakdown. November football is here, stakes are rising, and the Big Ten plot twists just keep on coming. Michigan goes into East Lansing and handles business, beating Michigan State 31-20 to keep their Big Ten hopes alive. No Bryce Underwood highlight reel needed. This was old school Michigan football. Justice Haynes returns and dominates with 152 yards and 2 touchdowns, and Jordan Marshall added 110 yards in the 56-yard knockout run late. The defense stepped up on 4th down twice in the 4th quarter, and the Wolverines have now won 4 straight in the rivalry. Now on to Columbus. Penn State tries to stop the slide against number 1 Ohio State in a game that still has some juice. The Buckeyes have been steady and ruthless. Julian Sayin is efficient with elite wide receiver talent, and the defense suffocates any team it goes up against. Analytics say it'll be a rough one for Penn State. Buckeyes around 90% favorites in most models. For the Nittany Lions to have a shot, feed Katron Allen early, win 1st down, and force Sayin into uncomfortable throws. If Ohio State controls 3rd downs like they have all year, it might be another methodical Buckeye win at home. Out west, Midwest, USC travels to Nebraska in a sneaky fun matchup. USC is coming off of the Notre Dame loss, but Jaden Mayava and Makai Lemon still look to be explosive. Nebraska, well, they're already bowl eligible and feeling it. They ran for 124 yards and returned a kickoff for 95 yards last week. The key here, if USC protects the quarterback and tackles better, they should pull it off. If Nebraska slows down the game and wins special teams again, Lincoln might turn into a 4th quarter trap. I'm Brooks White. We'll see you next week.
Thank you to our resident ball knower, Brooks White, providing us some insight around the Big Ten Conference. We're going to get broader, though, and bigger. Next Tuesday, November 4th, it's the first college football playoff rankings for this football season. So us three, we have made our college football playoff bracketology. Now, ours is a predictive base. This is what we think is going to happen come the final rankings after the conference championships. Tuesdays is the rankings for what has happened up to this point. Graham, let's give your 12. I'll give mine 12. Thomas his 12. And then we'll discourse and bite each other's head off because we disagree on everything. Graham, let's get going.
All right, honored to get the ball rolling here, guys. This is what I'm going with. I've got Ohio State 1. Again, innocent until proven guilty. That's what I'm going with. I think A&M wins the SEC. Indiana at 3rd. Bama following close behind. They've had a really good rejuvenation after that loss to Florida State. And then a couple more fill-ins, Georgia, Oregon, Ole Miss, Miami. Texas Tech up there at 9, Georgia Tech, Notre Dame I've got squeaking in, but that could very well change. BYU could get in. We'll talk about it. And then group of 5, I've got Memphis right now after their win against USF.
All right, I will take my 12. Similar to you, the 1 seed for me is Ohio State. I got them winning the Big Ten. I got Alabama as the SEC winner, Indiana Big Ten runner-up. I got Georgia making it to the SEC championship, running the table out the way, and then they lose there. Oregon I have as the 5, just considering their 1 loss on the season, in my my book is going to be to Indiana, which sits at number 3. Ole Miss has a great year and an easy schedule ahead of them. I think they win out, slipping at that 6. You see right there, 7 for Texas A&M, ACC winner Miami at 8, Texas Tech, my Big 12 winner, Georgia Tech, the ACC runner-up at 10. I also have Notre Dame squeaking, and I mean 10 straight wins. You can't ignore that. And then I do have USF. I think they bounce back from that Memphis win and take that group of 5 spot.
All right, well, I'll jump into mine. Mine is a little less chalky than these guys is. I have Ohio State 1. Ohio State, like you guys have said, until they lose a game, we're not moving them. I have A&M also winning the SEC. And then I have Georgia Tech going undefeated and winning the ACC. That'll mean they have to beat Pittsburgh on at home, beat Georgia, and then win the ACC title for that to happen. Let's say that Haynes King and the boys get it done. We have Indiana, the runner-up in the Big Ten. Alabama, good season. They've won 4 straight before last weekend against top 25 teams. Oregon gets in with only 1 loss to Indiana. Ole Miss gets in. Their losses to Georgia. Miami gets in. Whether they make or lose the Big Ten ACC title doesn't really matter to me. Texas Tech is going to squeeze in. They're going to win the Big 12, I believe. Georgia, even though they're going to lose that game to Georgia Tech, I believe their losses are good enough to get in. And then Cincinnati. I have Cincinnati beating Utah, having them beating BYU, and losing in a close Big 12 title loss to Texas Tech, just enough to get them in with that Louisville loss. And then I'm incorrect about the Louisville loss. Sorry. Nebraska loss. There we go. First game of the season. Navy is my group of 5 team. Now, listen to this gauntlet. North Texas, Notre Dame, South Florida, and Memphis. Those are their next 4 games.
I mean,
doesn't matter to me. I think Blake Horvath continues the great season he's had so far, and they make it in.
Imagine the matchup right there. A team that runs the triple option in the college football playoff.
They would be playing Bama in my playoff.
I mean, that would feed the sickos of college football seeing that happen. Let's talk a little bit about this. Georgia Tech getting a bye. I mean, the ACC is on the weaker side scheduling wise. Yes. But they still have, good old fashioned hate their rivalry game against Georgia. And history has not been kind to them. Yes, there was that classic last year, the multi-overtime game where honestly, I think Georgia Tech could have won and should have won. But the history is not kind when those SEC and ACC teams play. You think Georgia Tech gets it done against this Georgia team? I do. I think that they're going to go ahead and beat Pittsburgh. And then Georgia, I haven't been impressed with Georgia so far this season. I think that they're a team that I think can get punched, and I think Haynes King and Georgia Tech are the guys to do it. Brent Key, they're doing a great job down there. And I think that rivalry game is going to be huge come November. You were also the lone person to not have Notre Dame. Yeah. And you think 10 straight wins is nothing. You were also the only person that had the 2 Big 12 teams as the Big 12 runner-up making it. Yes, Cincinnati, they have a tough schedule. They're at Utah, which is, I think, the lone ranked game this season. Coming into the year, this is supposed to be the best weekend in college football. All the teams now unranked, Florida, Penn State, you name it. But back to Cincinnati. Brendan Sorsby gets it done, makes the playoffs. I mean, Scott Satterfield last year, Cincy fans were calling for his head on a platter to get fired. And look at this. Luke Fickell would be quaking in his boots seeing that happen.
Yeah, just quickly on the Notre Dame, like we've talked about, this is all predictive. This is all based on what we think will happen. And the reason I won't have Notre Dame in is because I think Navy beats them.
That's right. That's right.
So that would be my reasoning there. Brendan Sorsby, man, you said earlier, he's tied with Mendoza for the most touchdowns accounted for. I'm not super high on Utah. I think Bear Bachmeier and BYU are susceptible to get caught in a game, and I think they will. And then Texas Tech, they're a great team, and I think that Cincinnati probably doesn't beat them in the Big 12 title, but I think they play them close enough to get a nod.
Now, something we all did was not have BYU in our rankings, currently the top team in the Big 12. They have a tough schedule. At Texas Tech, at Cincinnati, still have to play. Graham, it seems like they're out. And also Vanderbilt. No Vanderbilt.
Dude, I went back and forth on Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt's a tough story for me. I just don't – they've got a tough end of the season as well. I don't think that they're going to be able to win out. And then BYU, that's also a tough one for me. I'm going back and forth, guys. I went BYU originally, and then I went Notre Dame. Now I'm kind of leaning back to BYU. I did a little bit more research today than I did previously, and now I'm regretting it. But BYU at Texas Tech, at Cincinnati, very difficult. I think that they can beat Cincinnati. Obviously, you don't because you've got Cincinnati in that top 12. I think that they can win that game, which then if you have one loss on the season, even if you do have a conference championship loss, I think you're getting a spot. It's tough to say, but it's so tough. I think that BYU could very well beat Cincinnati, though, even though it is on the road. But with the way Notre Dame's trending, I don't think they'll lose to Navy.
I want to ask you guys two questions that interested me as I was going through this process. One, all three of us chose Ohio State to win the Big Ten title game, appearingly. Any reservations with that?
Yes.
I mean, they've looked like the best team in the country. They've looked like the defending national champions. So Julian's saying, I will eat my words here. He has stepped up in a big way as a freshman quarterback, and he's got, I would say, the best receiver tandem in all of college football. I know we talk so highly about Elijah Surratt and Omar Cooper, but it's hard to beat Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate right there. I'm interested about the SEC because I think Texas A&M is susceptible to a loss. They still have a tough road schedule. Yes, Texas has not lived up to their potential this year. That's a hard place to play. And Missouri is having a solid season. That's another road game for Texas A&M. I think they slip up. I don't know if Marshall Reed can get it. This is a team that historically their nickname has been Texas 8-4 because they just can't get over that hump to be, in that top 15 range. Graham, you think they got it though?
I do think they got it. And it goes back to the same thing we're talking about with Ohio State. A&M not lost a game yet this season. They have looked really good. Beat LSU, Notre Dame, USC, Texas. They beat some pretty big teams. They beat big names. They got
Brian Kelly fired.
They got Brian Kelly fired. They did do that. But obviously that LSU game was a blowout, but not all of them have been. They won some really close competitive games against these really good ranked teams. Notre Dame, they won by 1 point. USC, they won by 4 points. And we talked about this with Maryland. A good team is one that can win down the stretch. I think that that's a sign. Their ability to do that against ranked teams is a sign to me that they are a good team. Come crunch time, are they still a good team in a championship game? Who knows? I think right now I'm leaning towards yes, again, undefeated, innocent until proven guilty. I think that they've got it.
And collectively, guys, I'm looking at mine. You guys check yours out. I have 3 Big Ten teams, 4 SEC teams, and then the ACC and the Big 12 each getting 2 as well. But one interesting thing is that 4th Big Ten team, nobody jumps off the page, but something that I really found interesting looking through all this, the blueprint's there for Michigan, guys.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
They have a couple easy games coming up, and then if they can beat Ohio State, that would, I believe, propel them into the Big Ten title game. They would have to win that as well, but the blueprint is there. It's not the craziest thing in the world.
It isn't. The game's back in the big house. It's crazy because Bryce Underwood is on pace for 10 touchdowns this season. We have seen a freshman like this before, but the game's in the big house. Ryan Day doesn't have a great record in the game. I don't know. I feel like he's going to be fired up for this one.
You said fired. I didn't know where that was going.
Fired up. I think this is a time that Ryan Day finally figured. I don't have a 4th Big Ten team.
Nor do I.
Yeah, I don't either.
I mean, Iowa can make a case for it. They're a one-loss team in Big Ten. Their lone loss is Indiana.
Beat Penn State.
Hey, Illinois lost to Ohio State and Indiana.
I got to feel bad for Penn State. I mean, everything that's happened, they lose by 1 out in Iowa City.
Yeah.
They're putting up a fight, though. I mean, that's going to be interesting if they can hold their own against Ohio State.
Right.
In the shoe.
That's
going to wrap up everything. That was our very first CFP bracketology. We'll probably be updating it as the season goes along and when one of our teams inevitably loses and we look like idiots in this show. But for Thomas Crow, Graham Nash, and our entire production crew, I'm Joe Cronin saying so long from Merchants Bank Field here at Memorial Stadium. We'll see you next week as Hoosiers and Terrapins take on at 3:30 on CBS before we preview the Penn State game next week. So long.
Cooper got open and caught it. Touchdown, Indiana.
Going up the middle is Omar Cooper, and he'll walk into the end zone.
Complete at the 47. Surratt with no one to beat.